In 2006, the Senate passed a bill that you sponsored and which Vice President Al Gore called the toughest climate change legislation in the country. Would you like to tell our viewers about that?
Well, the only reason they don't know about it is that Governor Douglas and Brian Doobie opposed it and they vetoed the bill. Having said that, I talked earlier about how we brought the legislature together to learn about climate change. What came out of that was a bill that I sponsored that would have basically made Vermont the leader in efficiency. Now, what does that mean? People always talk about efficiency. All it means is insulate our buildings, replace our old leaking windows and doors, and get at insulation in the attic. I mean, it's about that simple. That's what we got to get done, and tighten up the foundations. I just talked to a friend. I just had lunch with a friend who's told me that she and her husband had invested $12,000 in their building this year, and they got a tax credit worth about $3,000, so it really only costs them $9-ish, and they have reduced their heating bill from $2,300 to $900 a year. That's big. If every Vermonter did that, we'd be saving a ton of money. That's not going to oil companies and countries, frankly, that mostly don't like us. Not going to BP in the Gulf, but going into Vermonters' pockets. So what the bill did was create an all-fuels energy efficiency utility that allowed all of us, not just low-income Vermonters, for all fuels, not just electricity, but oil and the rest, to have the resources to tighten up our buildings and stop wasting the extraordinary amount of power that we're shooting out of our windows and out of our doors and out of our leaking buildings. And that's something I'm going to do as governor, is go back to that theme that we can be the efficiency leader, the tightest buildings in the country, in one of the coldest states in the country, and we can make it happen.
You have described yourself as a social liberal and a fiscal conservative. We have become a society of haves and have-nots. Considering the inequitable distribution of wealth, isn't there a contradiction between meeting social needs and economic conservatism?
No, and let me tell you why. My economic conservatism doesn't mean that I don't believe in progressive taxes. I do. I believe that the people who make the most should pay the most, and the people who make the least should pay the least. Where my fiscal conservative comes from is from having been raised without much and having built a business, and a successful one, and understanding that you can't meet your goals in government or in the private sector unless you're successful, unless you can actually pay your bills. And that's the problem with government right now. You know, we just spent, Washington's spending money like a bunch of drunken bandits. We're going to all pay for that, and it's a disaster coming. I mean, this deficit is the biggest challenge we face aside from climate change. It's crazy. Vermont isn't a lot better. For the last 8 years, this team has been making promises that don't get paid for and that can't be kept. We've got to stop doing that. You can't promise programs that are going to cost you $1.50 a day when you're only bringing in $1. Now, what's an example? Catamount Health. Who could be against Catamount Health? Great insurance. Gosh, we all would want to be on it. We're up on TV right now advertising. Come join Catamount Health. Well, you know, when Governor Douglas and Doobie and the team passed that bill, they never paid for it. So right now we have $30–40 million of health care bills building up in Montpelier that we can't figure out how to pay at the same time that we're up on TV saying join these programs. You can't run a railroad that way. It's going to fall apart. It's not going to get you where you need to go. So here's my fiscal conservatism. I will treat the taxpayers' dollars the same way I've treated my own. Build them up, pay for the things you need to pay for, and don't make promises you can't keep. I believe about taxation that Vermont is pretty much taxed to the max now. I don't think Vermont has more tax capacity to solve our budget problems. That's why we cut $168 million from the budget last year and $158 million from the budget this year without raising broad-based taxes. So to those that think that we can solve all of our problems by raising more taxes on Vermonters, I say you're wrong. We have a 10% income tax right now at the top. Our sales tax is at 6%. That's too high. It's driving businesses over to New Hampshire. We have a 10% rooms and meals tax, or close to it, 9 point something. There's just not a lot more capacity there. So what we have to do instead is live within our means, not make promises we can't keep, and stop promising government programs that we can't pay for, and when we promise them and pass them, make sure we're paying for them.
You say that we are taxed to a maximum now. In Scandinavia, there's a tax on assets. So if someone has $100 million in the bank, they pay 1%, $10 million a year, as a tax on their bank account or their assets. If such a tax were introduced in Vermont, that would be a source of additional income, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't, and let me tell you why. Scandinavia is a country. America, as a country, has given the farm away to wealthy people. And we should go back to a progressive tax policy in Washington. The problem for Vermont is that we're a state, not a country, and income is portable. We now have 2,300 Vermonters paying almost 40% of the income taxes in Vermont. Our tax system was designed for, over the years, for a civilization that didn't have an internet, where money wasn't portable. You literally had to go, for most of our taxes policy of Vermont's history, you'd had to go down to the bank, say to the banker, hey, give me my $1,000, put it in your pocket and walk out and move it somewhere else, or drive it somewhere else, or put it in a bag and haul it somewhere else. Those days are gone. You can push a button now and move money around. The second thing it wasn't designed for is internet purchasing. So we have a sales tax. Well, how do you evade the sales tax in Vermont? Either go to the internet or go to New Hampshire.